So, welcome to Outsource Radio, amplifying voices, inspiring the world. I'm your host, Alba Mireles, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome today's guest, soul singer, the author of the book titled The Hennesy Secret. We're here to celebrate your creativity and explore the world you crafted in this book. So, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Wow.
So, before we jump into the book, I want to know a little bit about who is Soul Singer.
Well, I'm a novelist. Done a lot of different things. I was a college English teacher. Worked in the Arizona prisons, like as a minister. Um, but I turned out a trilogy, and but it was about 35 years ago, and so that book, the three books, but especially the first book, it just sort of collected dust until this I connected with my illustrator, and we created something totally different. So it's like two lives.
And also, I know that every author has a journey that shaped their voice. Can you share a little bit about your background and how it influenced your storytelling style?
Wow, that's really a great question. Uh, well, I grew up in New York, went to Columbia in New York, went was an English major, and then I dropped out for a whole big time, and I did a lot of spiritual work. So I think if you combine that, the English major part with just, for about 30 odd years, got up before, at a little after 3 a.m., did an hour and a half group spiritual practice. So you combine those two, and you start to get the sort of aesthetic that came out in the story.
And the title of your book already captures like attention. How the idea of the Hennesy Secret first come to you?
Well, that's a great question too. I'm very bad about titles, and the book, when I wrote it initially, was called "The Ghost of Susan Strasser," and we have a character in it, Susan Strasser, who's sort of like a Marilyn Monroe ghost. And so I had titled it that when I wrote the book, but this is a much better title. So this sort of came when we did the graphic novel. Uh, it sort of explains it better.
And give like without giving away spoilers, let's give listeners a sense of what they can expect. Can you describe like the Hennessy Secret?
Well, I think it's a Faustian bargain. It's a very, to somebody who decides that they they sort of commit to the sort of dark forces in order to get all fame and fortune. So he becomes very rich, but with like a terrible secret. And then our sort of protagonist is the grandson, sort of the heir, who sort of wants to, break free, and he he finds allies in India with Ronnie, who is sort of someone who has psychic powers. So she's the first one to sort of intuit that there's something a lot more in this whole Hennessy saga than we as the readers know. So we sort of keep learning more and more about what this deal was, and how the protagonist is, wants to break free.
And stories often begin with either a character or a theme. Like, did you start this book with the character in mind, or did the central theme come first?
Ah, I, I think probably the character, but the way I work is I never know what I'm going to do, and it comes to me. So this, I think the character, gee, I don't know what came first. That's a good. It's so long ago, really. It's so long ago, but they're very intertwined. But it is the hero's journey, and it is sort of how how you in the hero's journey, how you learn, how you equip, how you summon your spirit to take on forces that are much bigger than you. So it's sort of I don't know how it came to me, but it was very incremental thing. I mean, this is an interesting thing. This is how I wrote the story. It was a methodology that I had. I was doing every day. I would do swimming, and so I'd swim 20 minutes, and I would think about where the story was, and I'd start doing this particular mantra, and I swim, and you get into sort of a hypnotic state when you swim, and by the end of the 20 minutes, I knew where the next the next part of the story was going. So that was my methodology.
And your character feel like real layer, which makes readers connect deeply. What was the inspiration behind your main character, and how did you shape their voice?
Hmm. I think all the characters are an expression of my subconscious mind. So I really relate to all of them. I relate to the bad guys. I relate, so I think they're all just sort of parts of there. Um, I think there's a part of me in every one of the characters.
And sometimes side characters surprises you as an author, as a reader. Did any character take on a bigger role that you originally planned?
Oh yeah, that's such a great question. We have, I had mentioned this character Susan Strasser. She's the one ghost, and she's sort of like clueless. She's sort of in the ethers, and she's a big movie star, but now she's in the she's sort of in a sort of like a purgatory. Anyway, she just it's the last fourth of the book. She comes on, and she comes on like gangbusters. It's so much fun to do, Susan. Let me see if I can get you a picture of her. Uh, why don't you ask me a question while I'm finding this? Because I want to show you what Susan.
Is like the picture, and the best stories reflect human truths we all recognize. What kind of emotional journey do you hope readers experience with this book?
Uh, I think it is a lot like what happens with Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. Is these stories is sort of our soul journeys, where there are invisible and visible forces involved. They take you somewhere that is uplifting and hopeful. I do think that's what soul journey books do. They're different than like a romance, very much heart, very much ache, this da da da. This is more up here, and I would say at least 40%, maybe 50% is sort of spirits and ghosts and demons. So you've got a lot of stuff here. So I think uh, that makes your experience more etheric, but I don't know. I look at it more hopeful. It's almost like you see the big horizon. It's like when you see a beautiful sunset and you see the whole expanse, and it just does something to you. I think that's what the sort of soul journey books do.
Yeah, it opens your mind, right? And every writer has their own like rhythm. What does a typical writing day look like for you?
Well, I do write every day, but what I find this is, it's interesting having taught English. I taught college for about maybe about 7 years, and when you teach, it doesn't matter if you're on a low energy, right? You can come into the room, you can feed off the energy of the students, you're fine, But writing, being monastic, I have to have a certain level of energy. So I'll write pretty much write. I would say about 2 hours a day, but it's like good 2 hours. Um, and I'm working on another. Well, this is an interesting thing. So I'm working on a second story. It's basically it's a little thematically the same. It's like Liz Taylor, the actress, does a deal with the devil, and now she wants out. So that's the story I'm dealing with. At the same time, my illustrator, Avery, is doing a graphic novel on it. So we are sort of learning from each other. And it's very interesting doing writing and then having an illustrator interpret it into an image because they're very different.
Yeah,
Uh,
and that made me think like, what challenges did you face while writing the Hennessy Secret? How did you overcome them? Like, you should have those ones.
you mean working with the illustrator and
Yeah, both like writing and at the same time illustrating that book.
yeah. So this is great. I so my illustrator's name is Avery Storms, and he's in his late 20s now. But we were born a couple of days away from each other, so we have the same aesthetic, even though we're different generations, which is really great. So we would meet. We started on the Hennesy Secret. We started in the beginning of COVID. We met every week, and he would send me images. And but it's a different thing because a graphic novel is sort of like a movie in that everything needs to be condensed. So novels meander, and that's the beauty of it. You just want to get in the person's head, and but here you got to in order to do the graphic novel, you got to kill off some characters, you got to really condense it down, and then it was very interesting. We have a character named Max who's a psychic, and I wrote about him, but Avery, his visuals were so much better than my writing. So it can work like that. So I found it, gratifying, and it's fun to be starting on another one.
Yeah, and that made me think sometimes books live twice. Once we write them, like, and again when readers bring them to life. What kind of conversation do you hope the Hennessy Secret spark among readers?
I think that we've got a soul, and that soul needs to be nourished. And so I really enjoy stories where that is invoked in spirit forms and stuff like that. And I find that a lot of the uh, things that take on this issue, too much darkness. It's like, so I like the fact that we have a battle, and it's hopeful, and um, but I think this is an important thing for people to get that type of nourishment. And I do, one thing that's been very interesting with the book is that it has been people in the AA community and halfway up. They have, we've seen quite a market with that, right? because it's sort of, well, I'm fighting darkness and light. I now have this pictorial story dealing with darkness and light, and it's helpful.
And you know that many readers fall in love with a world and one more. Like, do you see the Hennessy Secret as a standalone story, or could it grow into a series?
I think this one is by itself, but I think we're going to do this other story, which is I'm really jazzed about. So I think even though I wrote a trilogy, I think we'll probably put those other two books to bed, and we'll just have this one.
And authors are always creating, even in if just in their minds. Are you currently working in another project, or can you give us a sneak peek?
Well, that's what I was telling you about this Liz Taylor thing, right?
That
So
book.
yeah, so we're definitely working on this. He lives in Urbana, Illinois, and I visited him a couple of weeks ago. So that yeah, that's in full gear. Yeah, he's at the point where the first thing you've got to do is storyboard everything, right? Just like a movie, you got to get, okay, this block, that block, and that's where we're at the moment with it.
And your journey can inspire those listening who dream of writing. What advice would you share with aspiring authors who are just starting out?
You know, I think just the doing of it, just the doing of it, and uh, finding supportive people, who can keep you going. I had a group of people when I was like writing chapters for this new book. I had about maybe about 7 or 8 people. I would be sending out the chapters as I finished them, and I'd get that positive feedback because, especially with the novelist, it's a long grind. It's usually about, I mean, for me, it's usually about a year and or a little more. So having some cheerleaders is very helpful.
And let's make sure listeners know how to stay connected with you. Where can people find the Hennessy Secret and follow your work online?
So we have this website, the HennessySecret.com. It takes you right into Amazon, and I mean, they have the greatest thing there where they have it's all print on demand, so there's no inventory, and you can just click it. It's $20, which is a good deal for. It's about over 200 pages, um, and so I think that's what I would recommend people look at.
Okay, and thank you so much, all, for being here. It has been a pleasure having you on Authors Radio. Thank you for giving us a glimpse into your work and sharing your passion. And listeners, be sure to check his book. Thank you for tuning into Authors Radio, amplifying voices, inspiring the world. And join me next time for another inspiring conversation. In the meantime, happy listening.
Well, thank you. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it.